Allah is my heart's speech. Your mercy is what I beseech. Keep in my heart your remembrance, and in your deen allow me to advance. Help me in my quest. Permit me to pass the ultimate test. Help me in my quest. Permit me to pass the ultimate test.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to a new episode of Ask Huda. I'm your host, Fuad Muhammad. We welcome on today's show Sheikh Asim Luqman Al-Hakim, all the way from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh, and welcome to Ask Huda.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm glad to be here.
Jazakallahu khairan. Well, today's show is only about emails. We're only going to be answering emails, so we would not be accepting any telephone calls. And just a reminder of our emails, if you have a question, it's ask, that's ask, @huda.tv. Sheikh, in the last episode we were tackling sister's question, and I didn't ask this one because it would take a lot of time. Her question is about inheritance. She says, a man died and left his wife, a son, and 2 daughters. A wife, a son, and 2 daughters, and a grandson and a granddaughter of a dead son, and also 2 grandsons of a dead daughter. She also says in his last year, he could not drive, so he asked his son to drive for him and promised him in return the car. She wants to know how the wealth should be distributed and what about the car.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على عبده ورسوله الأمين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Regarding the car, it was a promise, but it was not a gift. And even if the father gave the car at his life to his son, he would be unfair, unless the son needed that car and it was not a gift, it was something of necessity, because parents have to be careful in what they give to their children. The Prophet said, ﷺ, fear Allah and be fair with your offspring. Meaning that there is a difference between gifts and the difference of supporting your child. If I have 4 children, one goes to high school, one goes to the university, and 2 in intermediate schools, I would give pocket money different to each one of them because of their need.
Yes.
I would give the eldest who goes to university a car, and if he wants to get married, I'll help him in getting married.
Yes.
But I'm not obliged to give the other 3 the same, because this is not a gift, this is supporting the child. Likewise, the youngest might have to undergo a surgery, and I have to pay a lot of money for that. May Allah forbid this. But the eldest should not come and say, well, you paid 20,000 riyals to that surgery, I'm entitled for something similar. I would say, get sick, and I'll pay that for you.
Yes.
But see, there's a difference between support and gift.
Yes.
Now, on Eid, for example, it's a custom that we give our children gifts. In this case, we have to be fair.
Yes.
So I give the eldest and the youngest the same amount. If I'm going to give them 1 riyal, I'll give the rest 1 riyal. If I'm going to give 1,000 riyals, I give the rest 1,000 riyals. Now, the promise of a car is just a promise. Because the father died and he did not fulfill the promise, this cannot be considered as a will. And even if it was a will, then it has to be dissolved and void, because it is not fair. Going back to the inheritance, the grandchildren would not get anything, whether they're from the deceased son or from the deceased daughter. Because when the man died, he was survived by his son and 2 daughters. So the son blocks anyone else. He blocks the uncles, he blocks the grandchildren. And by this, we know that the wife gets 1/8 of the inheritance, and the rest is divided by the boy and the 2 girls, which means that the rest is divided by 4 shares. 2 shares for the boy and 1 share for each girl. So this is the division it should be.
Okay. This is a question from a new Muslim. She says, I've been a new Muslim for 2 years now, alhamdulillah. Allah has blessed me with a pious husband and a son. She says, but unfortunately, I don't see my husband a lot because I'm the second wife and married to my husband with the condition of having 2 nights a week. That's the condition they made with the marriage. She says, does it mean that I don't have any time during the day? And what about my journey and family events? How do I work it out? She says, I feel frustrated at times, but she believes that Allah knows what's best for her.
This is in accordance to what they have agreed upon.
Mm-hmm.
Usually women who accept on such conditions, they need to get married,
Mm-hmm.
or the man is so precious
Mm-hmm.
that they accept on these conditions so that they would win his
Mm-hmm.
heart, or because the man doesn't have time.
Mm-hmm.
And in so many cases, as long as the agreement is mutual, then alhamdulillah, the contract is correct. Now, does this mean that he does not have to visit her at daytime? No, it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
If she agreed that he spends 2 nights, if there isn't anything mentioned, this means that he also has to come to her at daytime. But most likely, and Allah knows best, that his first wife probably does not know.
Mm-hmm.
And that is why he can skip twice a week. But during the daytime, it's difficult either because he's at work or she knows where he is.
Mm-hmm.
If she knows, if the first wife knows and she has information of this, then this is up to him and her to discuss. I mean the second wife and the husband to, communicate and put everything on the table.
Mm.
As for family events and gatherings and feasts, Eids for example, this should also apply. And there's nothing in Islam that says that you have to do this or you don't have to do that. Islam tells us that a man must be fair with his wives. So if he has 2 wives, he has to spend equal time at each house.
Mm-hmm.
So some people do it night by night. Others do it 3 nights by 3 nights.
Mm-hmm.
Some would say, no, I have 4 nights, alternatively, but then the weekend, 3 days in a row, I'll take it at one house, and the following week I'll take it at the other house. It all depends, providing that it is equal time distributed among the 2 houses.
Okay, we have a question here from Mariam, and she says, my name is Mariam, I'm living in Norway. My daughter's name is Fatima, and she's living in Sierra Leone. She says, and Liberia we called Fatima Fanta. They call this in Sierra Leone. She says, is it halal or haram? Is it permissible to call someone this name?
Whether you call her Fanta or Sprite or Miranda, this is up to you.
Mm-hmm.
Because the name itself, it's, some countries call Fatima Fifi.
Yes.
Some countries call Zainab Zuzu.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a nickname.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing wrong. It's not a name that is in the Quran or the Sunnah you should not tamper with or play with. It's just a name. It's okay to call her whatever, inshallah. Providing that the name, the nickname Fanta does not have in their language another bad meaning.
Okay. She says, in Norway, the town I live in does not have a mosque. How do I pray the Friday prayer at home? Yes, Mariam from...
Well, women are not obliged to pray Friday prayers at the masjid.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a well-known fact, and this is a consensus of all scholars, that women do not have to pray Fridays at a masjid.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, her question is a little bit strange.
Mm-hmm.
She must pray Friday, which is dhuhr, in her house. She prays 4 rak'ahs as a normal, regular dhuhr.
Okay, we have a question here from Ledumila, and it's saying, in our religion, it is said that we have to obey our parents. She said, what if I'm in the situation that my parents always try to humiliate me? How do I cope with this and trying to obey them?
Well, you have to cope with them and obey them at the same time. See, Islam tells us that the status of parents is so great to the extent that even if they instruct you to associate others with Allah, that you don't obey them, but you have to be kind with them. To that extent. So, even if they humiliate you, you try your best not to be, or not to get yourself in a position where you're humiliated. Because mainly, parents would not go out of the blue to humiliate their children. If the children do something that needs to be disciplined or to be corrected, some parents may go a little bit further by correcting it with humiliation. So, I'd advise you not to do things that you should be corrected for, so that they would not humiliate you. And at the end of the day, always measure it by years, months, and days. Your parents are old, and their days are counted, and soon it would be over. And after the death, a great door of good deeds would be closed for you. Because now they're alive, you can seek their satisfaction and pleasure. You can obey them and do things as they wish and get happiness into their hearts. And this is a great and big door of reward for you. Once they are dead, it's over. You cannot do these things anymore. So make the best of the time. May Allah prolong their life as good practicing Muslims, doing good deeds, and helping you in attaining and getting their satisfaction, and stay away from their humiliation. But if they still humiliate you, then you should bear this for the sake of Allah.
Okay, we have a question here from Brother Tariq. He says, I'm so happy, me and my wife, to see you on Huda TV. And he says, I've converted to Islam. I'm from Puerto Rico, but I've married a woman from an Arab country. He says, how should a Muslim man treat his wife? And he's asking, according to the Quran and Sunnah, he said, especially in those very difficult times, when he's angry or tired with the kids, is he allowed to scream and yell at her? And if it's not, if he does this, is he forgiven for his action?
Well, I think we've done a full episode on the straight path by the name or by the title of The Ideal Husband. And I believe that maybe it would add value if the brother watches it. Nevertheless, a good husband does not reach that level of shouting and rage. A good husband controls himself, and always remembers that he also has shortcomings. Now, he is probably a fast-tempered person, and that is why he is getting so flared up easily with his wife. And probably South Americans are all like this. They're hot-blooded people. Yet Islam transforms people, changes people. So no matter where you're from, Islam is dominating you and making you change to the best. Not to the better, but to the best. And that is why, by becoming a practicing Muslim, Islam teaches you how to have excellent manners and how to control your anger and rage. Hypothetically speaking, you lost it. It so happened, and you just shouted and you cursed and you did things that 5 minutes later you came to regret. Are you forgiven? Well, if you did not sin, you don't have anything to fear. But if you said things that are wrong, this is up to Allah Azza wa Jal. You have to seek Allah's forgiveness. You have to repent. You have to feel deep remorse over the things that you have done. Because and after all of that, you don't know. Maybe Allah will forgive you, maybe not. This is one part of it. The second part is, would your wife forgive you? Because you have sinned. What is between you and Allah is between you and Allah. But what is between you and your wife is the one who should forgive you. For example, if I steal money from someone, it's a sin between me and Allah. But the money belongs to someone. So even if I ask Allah for forgiveness and I repent, yet I don't return the money to its lawful owner, I'm still going to be punished for that on the Day of Judgment. So the part with you and your wife, you should seek her forgiveness. Probably, and women are by nature weak and forgiving. They're kinder than us men, and they're more soft and tender, and they don't hold grudges. A sweet word from the husband makes the heart of his wife melt. So probably buy her some flowers, take her out for dinner, tell her, I'm weak. This is my nature, and you know me, but I know that you are a better person and that you will forgive me, and inshallah she'll forgive you.
Okay, we have a question here from Sister Zabida from Queens, United States of America. She says, how early should we bury the body of a deceased Muslim? And just to make it clear for you, in the West, when someone dies in a country, they have to wait until their relatives come from the other country, so they might end up keeping the body for days. How do we go about burying our dead in Islam?
The Prophet ﷺ told us that honoring the dead is by hasting in their burial. So we should not postpone this at all. Even for those who want to come from abroad or from faraway towns just to commemorate or to witness the burial or the funeral. This is not something that is legitimate. Yes, if it's a day, maybe, but and for something that is extremely important, but for such a reason, no, definitely this is not permissible. You have to wash the body, perfume it, wrap it in the shrouds, and perform funeral prayer and bury it. Usually in Arabia it takes like 6 hours from the death of the person, maybe less. You get it over with, because death is painful as long as it's there in front of you. Once the deceased is buried, alhamdulillah, he's gone. If he is a righteous soul, then you are preventing him from going to paradise and to his destiny. You're preventing him from meeting Allah's reward. And if it's a bad soul, then you're keeping it away from its punishment. Just get rid of it and throw it away. Therefore, postponing it without a legitimate reason is not permissible.
Okay, we have a question here. Did the Prophet ﷺ ordered the execution of Asma bin Marwan as stated by Ibn Ishaq? Is this a fabrication?
Asma bint Marwan? I have no idea. I don't know about this lady. And we know that the Prophet ﷺ, when the conquest of Mecca was there, he ordered the execution of a number of people, a handful. Two of them were women who used to sing poems in slandering Allah, the Prophet ﷺ, and the Muslims. And they were attacking the Prophet ﷺ and the Muslims as well. And a number of men who also were fierce enemies of Islam. And he forgave one or two of them, and the rest were executed. But this individual, I have no idea about it.
Okay, this is a question from India, and I think you've been lately to India. He says, this is from he didn't mention his name. He said in India, there's a lot of controversy concerning an occasion called Fatiha, not Surah Al-Fatiha. He says, which someone who is dead, or we would gather and read Quran and share some food after it. Because they don't have any reasons. He said, but I don't know what are the reasons behind doing it. Is it okay to do?
Most likely, he is referring to the occasion that some people do on the 40th day of the death of a person.
Yes.
And this custom was taken from the pharaohs, because the pharaohs thought that after 40 days, the soul is brought back into the body, and that is why they put treasures and his ride and his money and his armor next to his grave. As Muslims, we believe that all of these are innovations. And even meeting to commemorate or to remember a deceased and having food, this is considered to be part of the forbidden mourning. Mourning of a deceased person in such a fashion. The companions used to consider it as niyaha. And that is why gathering on food because of the death of a person, whether it's on the 1st, 2nd, or 3rd, or the 10th, or the 40th day, as in some Arab countries, all of this is an innovation and forbidden.
Okay, we have a question here from Sister Ruqayya from Nigeria. She's asking about postnatal bleeding. That's the bleeding after childbirth. She says, I read in some books of fiqh that it's 40 days after birth, and some in other books of fiqh, 60 days. She says, I'm confused. Which one do I go with?
Both opinions, as she has mentioned, belong to famous scholars of Islam. And the majority state that it is only 40 days. And some scholars say that if it continues after the 40 days with the same description, with the same color, with the same flow, then 60 days is the maximum. But the majority of women continue to less than 40 days. And inshallah, this is the most authentic opinion, that if she sees, if a woman sees the purity before the 40 days and the bleeding stops, alhamdulillah. If she sees the purity on the 41st day, and women know their purity by signs, either by dryness or by the white thread-like discharge. And she sees the purity, she takes a total bath, she makes ghusl, and she prays. And if she sees the bleeding afterwards, 5 or 6 days, and it's not her menstruation, she would ignore this, and whatever yellowish or brownish discharge that comes after seeing her purity is to be ignored.
Okay, I have a very long email here. It's about a page long, but I'm trying to summarize it for you. It's from Sister Huzaifa from Nigeria. The essence of the question, she says, I would like to ask you how to deal with a spouse who is doing haram things. She says, I love my husband. He's a very good man. He prays, he fasts, but he also falls into the category of those who smoke. She says when he gets angry, he swears occasionally. She says also he goes out with friends and have dinner with them in places where alcohol are served. She says when she try to correct him, his parents and relatives see her as being the one who, she uses the word bossy, that's trying to boss her husband, and they said that she's too strict and they call her a Wahhabi. She says, I try to practice, and he wants me to accept everything that is to be normal. He doesn't want her to go into that phase of being above him in terms of being committed to Islam. She says, how do I deal with the situation, with his family, with him? How do I go about dealing with it?
Well, we have to know that she has obligations to do. And parts of her obligations would be that she is or she becomes the wife that her husband would like to look at and talk to. Having said that, whenever she sees something that is against Islam and has to be corrected, all what she can do is to give the advice in a nice fashion, in a nice way, without causing any attention, because it appears that she's doing this in front of his family. She's advising him in front of her in-laws, and this is not acceptable at all. She should not bring this issue at all. She should give all the respect due to her husband in front of his family, her in-laws. But to go and boss him, as she called it, this would not be acceptable. Second of all, a husband, a man, is like a child. A wise woman knows how to control her husband. She could play with him like a child, but she has to know the keys to his heart. She has to know when to talk to him, how to talk to him. In so many cases, if she goes and says, this is what you're doing is haram, Sheikh bin Baz says this, Sheikh bin Uthaymeen says that, and the language, and in Arabic language, this is in the past tense and this is in the present, and the guy is, huh? He's astonished of what she's saying. He goes to his defensive mode. He's defending now his manhood. So you don't know, I don't want to listen to you. You're bossing me around. I don't like this tone of voice. While if she keeps a booklet, if she listens to a tape, if she asks him as if she's learning from him, tell me what, indirectly, if he smokes, she wouldn't go and say, oh my dear husband, what is the ruling on smoking? this is too direct. He knows this. But she has to figure out a way, a suitable way to control her husband in a nice way for the sake of Allah, not for the sake of her own well-being or for the sake of bossing him again. Secondly, if he does not listen, if he insists on what he's doing and he thinks that it's okay, or I'm praying and this compensates some of the things that I do, and this is him. So what should she do? Should she nag him and give him hell in his house until he listens and complies with her instructions and with her bossing him? Or should she become the love of his life and his satisfaction to see and talk? This is the wise woman. She would always take care of herself. She would always try to win his heart and be the one he wants her to be. But this should not prevent her from choosing the suitable time to give him advice.
Okay, Jazakallah khair for those advices. Sheikh Asim, we'll take a short break here on Ask Huda. We'll be back right after this. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
The true life of the Muslim starts at death. If you wish to enhance your knowledge of the Islamic perspective on the hereafter, this life doesn't go on forever, but we do so little to prepare for it because most of us don't know what happens after this life ends. If you want to be amongst those who know, then join us every Saturday at 1930 GMT for the inevitable journey.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back. You're watching Ask Huda. Just to remind the viewers, today we're not taking any telephone calls, but we're responding to the many emails we've been receiving. And just a quick reminder of our email address, it's ask, that's ASK, @huda.tv. We're still at Sister Huzaifa from Nigeria. Her second question, she says, if someone is doing qasr, for example, he cuts his prayer into, for example, Salat al-Dhuhr, but he's praying behind an imam who doesn't do qasr. What does he do? He cuts his prayer, sits and makes the taslim after the second rak'ah, or he continues and completes with the imam?
Of course, qasr, to those who do not know, it's shortening of the prayers. And we are allowed to shorten prayers when we are traveling. We can pray 4 rak'ahs, shorten them into 2, and that is it. So Fajr prayer remains 2, Maghrib remains 3, but Dhuhr, Asr and Isha can be shortened into 2 rak'ahs. Now, if a person travels and he hears the adhan or the prayer is being called from a masjid, and he enters this masjid knowing that the imam is residing, which means that he will continue to pray the prayer, he must follow the imam and he must pray the full prayer, even if he only prays one single prayer. So, even if the person comes in the 4th rak'ah, and the imam is in the 4th rak'ah, he joins the imam, and after finishing 1 rak'ah, the imam concludes his prayer. So this traveler should finish 3 more rak'ahs. One would say, but he's traveling, he can pray 1 more and his prayer is valid. Well, this was posed, the same question was posed to Abdullah ibn Abbas, may Allah be pleased with him, and said, and a man asked him, "Oh, cousin of the Prophet ﷺ, why is it when a traveler leads the prayer, he prays 2 rak'ahs, and when he's praying behind a residing person, he completes the prayers?" Ibn Abbas, may Allah be pleased with him, answered him in a very short answer. He said, my nephew, and this is what the Arabs call anyone who's younger than them, though he's not related to him. He said, my nephew, this is the sunnah. Which means that this is the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. But if I am traveling, like from Jeddah to Mecca, to Medina, for example, and all the masjids on the road are masjids not of towns, but for travelers. and I enter one of these masjid and I find the imam praying, and I don't know which rak'ah he's praying, and after praying one rak'ah with him, he concludes the prayer. Would I pray complete prayer or shortened prayer? Scholars say you should pray shortened prayer, because most likely he is also another traveler. This is not a town where people reside in. It's a masjid on the way. So inshallah this clarifies it a bit.
Okay, we have Brother Sulaiman from Oman, and he says, the reality of many Muslims when they're young, they don't usually pray. He says, how can we make up for our prayers that we did not pray in these past years? Should we pray it every day? We pray, like for example, at the time of Salatul Fajr, we pray 3 Salatul Fajr so that we can compensate these years we didn't pray?
Well, the Prophet ﷺ said in an authentic hadith that whoever sleeps over a prayer or forgets it should pray it the minute he wakes up or remembers it. There is no expiation for that other than this.
Yes.
Scholars looked into this hadith and they obtained the following benefit, and that is the time of prayer is fixed. So if you deliberately did not pray that prayer on time until the following prayer was due, then you have no excuse and you may not pray that particular prayer again. Can't I make it up? No, you cannot make it up. It's exactly as in the case of a person who, we know that Arafah is on the 9th of Dhul Hijjah. So a person got his reservations, he got the ticket, he got the boarding pass, he went to attend the Hajj on the 9th of Dhul Hijjah. But his plane did not function well. They had to land in another city and he was delayed for a couple of days. He came on the 11th of Dhul Hijjah, where everybody was in Mina. Yet the man went straight from the airport to Arafah. And on his own, he just stood there on Arafah. What are you doing? He said, I'm standing in Arafah. Yeah, but you should have done that 2 days ago. Well, my plane was delayed, so I'm making up. No Muslim would say that his Hajj is valid because he missed the time. And likewise, whoever misses the time of the prayer deliberately, he did not forget and he did not oversleep. He just didn't do it. He was watching the football match. He was in a meeting. He was doing whatever he was doing. In this case, he would not pray it over. He would not make it up. And even if he did pray it, it would not be accepted from him. Therefore, these prayers that you've missed in the past, it's gone. It's history. As long as you've repented to Allah and you feel deep remorse over what you had done, and you're offering night prayer, voluntary prayers, and you're paying charity, Allah Azza wa Jal would forgive all the prayers you've missed.
Okay, we have a question here about health insurance. I just read it out because it's a bit detailed. He says, I'm working with an international organization and health insurance is mandatory for me and my wife and children under 18 years. He said, however, by mistake I included my son and daughter who are above 18. It was not mandatory for the two of them. He says, please advise me because health insurance policy, if health insurance policy is lawful, but what do I do with regards to the two kids? Because he said, if I pull them out now, I have to pay an extra money, a fine.
The question is not very clear, though I remember answering a question similar to that by email that came to me. And if I'm not mistaken, if the international company is the one who's paying for your insurance fee, medical insurance, in this case, you have to pay back what they're paying you for your over 18 kids.
Okay.
But if you're the one who's paying, because some companies would not employ you unless you are insured. If the insurance is from the company itself, then this is considered to be as a gift. It's their obligation to give you and provide you with health care, but not for your two kids.
Yes.
who you insure them by mistake. Therefore, you have to see how much they're paying a year, and you give it back to them, and you should not benefit from any health care they're giving to these kids. But if you're the one who's paying, it's mandatory for you to pay. And in this case, don't withdraw your 2 kids, but you cannot take benefits of the insurance except equivalent to what you have paid. For example, if the annual fee you're paying for a child, the one who's over 18 years old, is, let's say, $1,000, you can get treatment throughout the year which is equivalent to $1,000. But if it exceeds that, then you have to take it from the company, and the remaining you have to pay for charity. For example, if you get a case where it cost $2,000
Yes.
for a treatment, so $1,000 is the one you paid. The extra $1,000 you get covered for, you have to pay it from your own money to charity, because you were supposed to pay it from your own money.
Okay, we have another question here. It's about family planning. It's an anonymous email, and I think it's from a sister. She says, is it prohibited for me to plan how many kids I want to have?
Again, this is the same situation. In Islam, the core purpose of marriage is to stay away from sin and to reproduce. The Prophet ﷺ told us to marry the kind and productive woman, because he will be proud of his followers on the Day of Judgment. So we have to reproduce. And anyone putting a particular number and saying that, okay, this is it, end of production line, this would go against the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. And the majority of scholars say that this is not up to the individual, it's not permissible. One should be functional and keep on as long as there is no hazards to his health and life. He should keep on, a woman should conceive, and a man should also try to reproduce.
Okay, we have a question here from Bassoum, and she says, my question is very important. She says, I've been feeling very uncomfortable for the last 4 weeks because she heard on one of our programs, even the husband, just by acting, says the word divorce, the actual divorce happened. Is this true?
If the divorce was clear and unambiguous...
Yeah, she said it mentioned the word divorce.
Yes, it happens. The Prophet ﷺ said that 3 things that when said in cases of reality and sincerity, it is taking place. And when said while joking, it is also taking place. And he mentioned among them, ﷺ, divorce. So if someone goes in times of anger and says to his wife, you're divorced, she's divorced. And if someone is joking with his wife and say, come on honey, you're divorced, she's divorced. Because this divorce no one plays with. And divorce is divided into 2 types: blunt and straightforward, and divorce that can be metaphorical. So if someone says to his wife, go to your family's house, go to your father's house, this is a divorce that is metaphorical. It cannot take place unless we ask the individual, what did you mean by that? If he said, I just wanted her to go to her father's house, I didn't intend divorce does not take place. But if he says, I intended that she's divorced, then divorce takes place. In the case of straightforward and blunt way of saying it, there is no need to check the intention, because it's straightforward.
Okay, she went into a bit of technicality here. She says she has 3 kids. 5 years ago, her husband, they had a fight and he was angry, and he told me, I divorced you 3 times. She said, I kept crying and didn't leave the house. The next day he came, they apologized. They had a sexual relationship, and out of that they had a daughter who is 1.5-year-old right now. She says, after listening to your program, I became very confused. Is it a 3 times divorce by mentioning it 3 times that I can't return to my husband?
Where does the sister, where is she from?
Didn't say.
Well, I advise the sister
Mm-hmm.
to write to us again, telling us where she is, because issues of divorce
Mm-hmm.
are issues that are connected usually to the judicial system. So when making a marriage, you have to go to the judge, and when separating or confirming a divorce, you have to go to a judge again.
Mm-hmm.
So if she's in a Muslim country
Mm-hmm.
with Islamic judges, she should consult them.
Mm-hmm.
If not, then she would, inshallah, write to us, and I will communicate with her accordingly, inshallah.
Okay, we have a question here about Umrah from Abdul Khalik, and he says, the sister, she did all the rites of Umrah, but she forgot to cut her hair, and she left Mecca and returned home. Is it obligatory for a woman to cut her hair after completing the Umrah? And if not, if it is, what is the expiation?
It is mandatory for man and woman to
Mhm.
cut their hair as a sign
Mhm.
of completing the Umrah and of becoming halal as they were before wearing
Mhm.
the ihram and getting into the intention or the status of ihram.
Mhm.
If she forgot and now she has remembered, she must cut her hair immediately.
Mhm.
And there is no expiation, inshallah, because all of the things that she had done was out of negligence and ignorance.
Mhm.
It was not deliberate.
Mhm.
So if she hears the program now and she did not cut her hair since, she would do that now.
Okay. We have a very serious question here. It's from Brother Idris. He says, Sheikh, please answer my question. I was married to a woman. She was pregnant. We had a little problem. And she left to another person with her pregnancy, to another man. The child was born for him. And the latter confessed that the son belongs to me, but the other guy he gave the name of the child for him. The second man gave the name that was for his leniency. What should I do as a Muslim? Please, I need your very important advice.
He was married to the woman, right?
He was married to the woman.
And she conceived from him.
Yes.
And when he divorced her,
No, she just left and she went to another man. And then I think they got married. But when the child was born, she...
the second marriage is void, is invalid,
Mhm.
because no one can marry a woman who is already married
Mhm.
unless she was divorced or forcibly separated by the judge,
Mhm.
or she filed for khul' and the husband agreed to take the compensation money, or the judge forced him to take the compensation money, then this marriage would be over. Other than that, the second marriage is void.
and it's just, during her pregnancy as well.
Of course, and this is second thing,
Mhm.
that any woman who is pregnant cannot get married at all,
Mhm.
and the son is still his. So even if the name was given to the child in reference to the second husband, or what's so-called husband, who's not, he's an adulterer, and she's an adulteress as well, this has to be cleared with the authorities.
Mhm.
Now, if they are living in a non-Muslim country, and most likely they are living
Yes.
in a non-Muslim
Yes.
country,
Mhm.
then this has to be either filed in a court of law, and he should claim the child.
And he has to.
It's a must. It's his own flesh and blood.
Mhm.
He has to give the child his proper name.
Mhm. Okay, we have a question here from Muhammad Garba. He says, what if someone misses the Fajr prayer? And he prays it later in the day. Does he have to pray it silent? And what if he prays Salat al-Dhuhr in the night? Because of some excuse, valid excuse, does he pray the prayer aloud?
The prayer itself does not change.
Mhm.
So if you pray Fajr prayer during the daytime, the sunnah is for you to pray it loud. And if you sleep over Asr,
Mhm.
and you pray it after Maghrib, for example,
Mhm.
after sunset, when it's night, also the sunnah is to pray it silent.
Mhm.
So it doesn't matter when you're praying it, whether in the day or in the evening, the prayer remains as it is. Having said that, raising the voice in loud prayers such as Fajr, Maghrib and Isha, or saying the surahs or the recitation silently in silent prayers such as Dhuhr and Asr is a sunnah. But if you do the opposite, your prayer is still valid. So if someone prays Dhuhr in a loud voice, his prayer is valid, but he's not doing the sunnah.
Okay.
And likewise, if he prays Maghrib silently, his prayer is still valid.
Okay, we have a question here from Sister Halima. She says, I'm from Canada. I would like to know if a husband seeking to marry a second wife must tell his first wife.
No, the answer is not. He does not have to. The answer is no. He doesn't have to tell his first wife that he's intending to marry a second wife, because this is something to do with him. It's not his obligation to seek her approval or to ask her or to inform her. However, out of experience, many marriages such as this would end in catastrophes. So I always advise brothers who would like to get married again to make everything under the light. Don't hide anything. Don't ever lie to your wife. Because whenever you lie to your wife, you have betrayed her trust, and she'll never trust you again. So if you want to do it, do it. But don't hide it and then come after 3 or 4 years and say, surprise, I'm married and I have a child. She would never respect you after that. Besides, a lot of the brothers, once they are interested in getting married again, they keep on telling their wives that they're going to get married for the second time 5 years ahead. So as if they are slaughtering a sheep with a dull knife. It's not going to kill or slaughter the sheep, but you're hurting your wife. So this is not a person with logic would do this. You have to be kind to your wife. If you have to get married, do it, but don't tell her except a week or 2 before the actual marriage, and always show your love to her. And this is out of necessity, not just something that to play with.
Okay, I have another question here from a Christian sister. She says, I converted to Islam about a year now. I've married a Muslim and I'm living in an Arab country. But she says, when I was a Christian, I had a son who is back in his home country. She says, is it allowed for me to still support him, although he's a non-Muslim?
You have to support him because he's your son. He's your flesh and blood. But I would like to comment on saying that as a Christian sister, she is a Muslim now, so
Yes.
she is not a Christian sister.
Yes,
because if she was still Christian, we're not allowed to call her a sister. And we're not allowed to call Christians as brothers, because our brotherhood is only to those who are believers. They are friends, they are colleagues, but they are not our sisters and brothers. Having said that, she has to support the child and try to give him da'wah if she has access of money. And at the same time, as long as she knows that he's not using it in something that is haram. So if he's not using the money to buy booze and to party at night, then it's, inshallah, this is permissible.
Okay, Jazakallah khair for all the advice today, Shaykh Qasim. We do hope to have you again, inshallah, on Ask Huda. To all the viewers, we would like to say, if you still have more questions for us, you can send an email at ask@huda.tv. And for those who would like to support Huda and Ask Huda, the program, you can write to us at support@huda.tv. And don't forget, you can always visit our website, www.huda.tv. Until next time, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
If my love is attached to thee, then from sins I will be free. Each time my heart will beat, your name will resound with heat. Allah is my heart's speech, your mercy is what I beseech. Keep in my heart your remembrance, and in your deen allow me to advance. Help me in my quest, permit me to pass the altar.